So here we are with the next episode of my methods of putting in the lining. Now I do the apron linings first because their edge is buried under the back lining. So we do that first. The first thing I do is I slip in a piece of plastic cardstock so that I won't sew through to the apron, because we would see those stitches from the outside. That wouldn't be acceptable. So this is just slipped in under the canvas so that it acts as sort of a barrier while working on it. So I've put the cloth in place. I've stuck it under the canvas because we have a raw edge here. In fact, we have two raw edges. Each piece has a raw edge. Now the raw edge is fine as long as somebody doesn't start playing with it and unteasing teasing out the yarns, which is kind of a human thing. So by just doing a running stitch and capturing these, we stabilize it so that it's not going to unravel by itself, and people are going to resist the temptation to play with it. So having pushed the lining under the canvas, I've made little chalk marks so that when I'm doing this running stitch, I don't run off the edge of the lining. So next stage, mark and cut here, do my running stitch, and then in the next episode I'll show you how I complete this. Cheers. Here we are a few minutes later, and you can see I reduced the piece to its proper length, possibly a little bit long, but it's easy, it's easy to take cloth off, a little harder to add cloth back on again. I've relieved these two corners so that we reduce bulk in the corner as it's folded down and sewn. And I've done the back stitch, and you can see in this case I've done it in contrasting threads just so you can see what I'm on about. So a back stitch and then running stitch, because here we're sewing through the canvas, through the lining, and into the top layer of the tartan. From the edge of this fold, where I did a back stitch just to stabilize it a bit, I carried on with running stitches, but now I'm just going through the canvas and the lining. I'm not fastening it to the outer cloth, which is the outer apron. Carrying on with running stitches, a couple of back stitches, a back stitch here, because again, the back stitch just anchors a little bit, and then to the end, and then back stitched and knotted. So the next stage, I'll fold this and pin this. Now I can get rid of the plastic, and then I check to make sure that I haven't gone adrift and my stitch hasn't run off, that I've captured the whole length of cloth. So I'm going to put the phone down, or I'm going to put the camera down again, and then pin this up and sew it, and then show you what I've done there. Here we are just a few minutes after that. It's folded up. As you can see, I've pinned it in place, including pinning down the corner, and I've given it sort of I felt it with my thumb just to make sure that there isn't any lumps in there of folded cloth, which is why we relieved that corner, as I showed you. So from here, I may do a little bit of trimming here because it's a little bit over, with a second relief at the corner. But with, pardon me, using appropriately colored thread, probably sort of a khaki olive, so that it'll vanish against this color. I'm going to start at our fold here, and then just sew all the way around to the end, just in a same stitch as we use for felling the pleats. And then having done this, we would do the other end as well, and of course I'll talk about that in a future segment. There we go. So here we are now. The seam is done, again starting at that fold with a double stitch, and then a fell stitch around to the end, and of course about this much will be covered by the back piece of the lining. And now I'm going to go do the same thing on the inner apron, with one minor difference, which I'll explain when we get there. And incidentally, the only reason why I'm using this black canvas, usually I use undyed, like natural canvas. This canvas, it's the correct weight, it's the correct weave, it's the correct strength. It's just black, and that's because it's left over from another project. And hey, waste not, want not. As soon as this stuff's exhausted, I'll go back. The supply of this stuff is exhausted, rather. I'll go back to using the natural stuff with my next purchase. Okay. Okay, this is the final installment of sewing in the lining of the aprons. I've done the outer apron on the left-hand side, which you saw. This is the lining for the inner apron. Now, normally, because we're bespoke, the customer will come in for at least one fitting, and certainly a final fitting. And in those circumstances, I would get to this point, or maybe just a little bit back, and just leave the apron lining unfinished, so that when the customer came in for his final fitting, I could precisely fit the strap on the inner apron to him by having him try the thing on and then marking where the strap is going to fall on the inner apron, and then sewing it in his presence, and then sewing it up. And that achieves the perfect fit, the best fit, without any complications. And frankly, because there should always be a little bit of theater to bespoke, the ceremony of the ritual of measuring and trying on and adjusting to fit and such like that. And it's well appreciated by both parties. I certainly enjoy it. So, but in this case, this client, because of course the border's closed, this client lives a fair distance away. So I'm going to complete this and then carry on. The next section will be sewing the center back panel. But for that, we're going to have to wait till my videographer is available. So that might take a little while. Cheers.